Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It is Thursday and we're in Amos chapter 6. I'm with Zack Unkenholz and Chris Rexroad. And it begins by saying, "What sorrow awaits you who lounge in luxury in Jerusalem and you who feel secure in Samaria. You are famous and popular in Israel. People go to you for help, but go over to Calneh and see what happened there. Then go to the great city of Hamath and down to the Philistine city of Gath. You are no better than they were, and look at how they were destroyed." So he begins by saying, "What sorrow awaits you who lounge in luxury." So I have two questions. What qualifies lounging in luxury, and why is it wrong?
As we sit on this very comfortable couch right now, I hope we're not lounging in luxury. But I think that I don't know if it's saying that lounging in luxury in itself is the sin, right? I don't get that from the passage, and even going further down, it is talking about I think that it reminds me of recently as we're reading about Nebuchadnezzar, of him looking at all he has and thinking, look how awesome I am. Even after seeing how God has blessed him, being told that God was going to bless him, and he looks around and he says, "Man, I'm awesome. Like this is all because of me." And that's kind of how the people are. Like they are prideful, and they believe that all of this. They're like, man, like they look down on other people. They are practicing oppression. They are being wicked. They are not caring about the people that God cares about, that God has a heart for. And so I don't think the luxury in itself is a sin of like, oh, like you have money, bad, but instead I think it's that, look at you sitting in your high ivory tower, looking down upon people, thinking you're so high and mighty. I am high and mighty. I am God, and look at the people around you. And so I don't think that the lounging is necessarily, or in luxury specifically, I don't think that's the sin.
I think the lounging part basically ties into avoiding doing the good that you could be doing. I don't
Mhm.
think that having great wealth or something is a sin. I think it can make it create a lot of opportunities for you to go astray. But I think that lounging in luxury is basically overindulging in the luxuries and the easiness of life while avoiding doing the good that you could be doing, or not paying attention to, like this book is about injustices, not doing something about it and even allowing it to happen to your benefit.
In my opinion, it's an unfortunate translation. Translations have to change a number of words to be a translation. And this is a place where they chose to use this phraseology to make a change that I think is somewhat misguided, because when we think of lounging in luxury, we think of relaxing and wealth, right? I mean, those are kind of the two things. The second part of the verse says, "You who feel secure in Samaria." Um, Most of the other translations use, instead of lounge and luxury, use words like ease, who are at ease in Israel, or Jerusalem, who are carefree in Israel. Those are the kind of that you don't see any other. You don't see anything going on. And I think that happens sometimes with people. We become so consumed with our own security, our own rest, our own freedom, that we pay no attention to anyone that is around us. I think, Chris, you said that the book talks about social justice issues. They're abusing widows and orphans and not feeding people and those kind of things. And I believe that's 100% true. And maybe luxury, maybe wealth was a part of it. Earlier he called them fat cows. So apparently they had plenty to eat.
Mhm.
They had plenty to drink, but there was people who didn't.
Mhm.
And it is very difficult. Let me say, it's difficult for me to eat well and see other people suffer. It's a very interesting dynamic. For example, when you're in a major city, we don't have this problem here. Too bad. I'm not saying it's not present. It's just out of sight and much smaller numbers. But if you're in New York City or Raleigh or Charlotte, and you're in the city, actual city downtown, and you go to eat, the likelihood there's going to be hungry homeless people, are really, really high, particularly in New York City. You go to California or go to the West Coast, frankly, and all the major cities are overwhelmed with homeless people. It's difficult for me to go spend $100 on a meal and walk out, and there are people who are there hungry. That's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't make it wrong for me to go eat $100 meal and not provide, but it starts to become a problem when those things don't bother us. When we can do our whatever we do and have no concern over other people who are suffering. What kinds of things give people a false sense of security, that at ease, that carefree?
Maybe just the location where you live, whether it be in the United States of like, oh, well, we live, like everything's fine where we live, or the town where you live, this like, where we just like, we have everything we could need is within like 15 minutes, it's and that ease is nice. And I think that like, as a culture, we are moving towards that ease is like what everyone's looking. That's what we're all looking for. We're trying to make our lives as easy as possible. We're like a remote control on the couch kind of culture. It's so everything's so easy, and I think that we just where we are, just in the United States, we're blessed that we're here. Like you like to say, it's like we hit the jackpot. Like
the lottery.
Yeah. Even still, even though we do live here, there are still people around us. There are homeless people here too. You don't see it as prevalently as you do in New York, but there are people who need food. There are widows and orphans here, and so we need to be more aware of that and not just live in our little own
Bubble.
shelter that we made. Yeah, a bubble.
I know back when we lived in Indiana, they were starting to deal with a whole lot of drug issues, but it was mainly up towards the Chicago, Gary area. And you didn't really think too much about it until it started getting piped down to us. And it would a lot of times run all the way down to a town called Kokomo there, and then it would spread out. And then there began to be a major problem with meth because of that. But when we were hearing reports of it all taking place up in Gary and Chicago and stuff like that, you didn't really think too much about it. You had this false sense of, we're safe, it's not around here, until it finds its way there. And usually by the time that you realize that there's some there, they've already created like a whole path there, and your area is already affected. So at that point there, do you move and not deal with the situation, or do you stay there and you try to help combat it?
So I have a random question.
Yeah.
That can't be the Kokomo and the Beach Boys song.
It is not. No. I can't remember the story behind that, but it is not.
Kokomo
way up in Kokomo.
Yeah, I know, right? Way up in Kokomo.
Yeah.
It does not sound like a town in Indiana.
For some reason, I think it had something to do with either the Gulf Coast or Hawaii, but I could be way off on that.
It's like Jersey Shore.
The town in
No, in the song.
Oh yeah, well I would assume that it was on a beach. Yeah. I'm just curious about how.
Yeah, there's
you ended up with a Kokomo, Indiana.
I have no idea.
Because there ain't no coconuts.
I lived in a Mexico, Indiana. I lived in a Peru, Indiana, and I lived in a Chile that looked like Chile, Indiana. It was pretty much all white population. So I have no idea.
My roommate was from Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania, which is just in the middle of Pennsylvania. There is no shore. Like, what is this? Yeah, very just random, pretty random.
Yeah.
Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania.
Does this look like a Miami?
I'm not
somewhere.
Sure.
There's a Miami, Indiana. There's a Brazil, Indiana.
There is Miami, Ohio. I know because there's a university there.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think if there was any shoreline in Pennsylvania, and there is.
There
Lake
is.
Erie.
Okay, so,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure Lake Erie it touches Lake Erie, I
Mhm.
think.
Oh, yeah, right where Ohio and New York come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm
got
pretty sure Pennsylvania's got some shoreline there. I
Yeah.
believe. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
anyway. I took a right turn, didn't I? So we're lounging in luxury
Yeah.
On
The-
Lake
over
Erie.
here, talking about Kokomo and Mexico
Yeah.
and Peru.
There's not much luxury there.
Well, thank you for joining us today on this edition of One Single Story. I hope you will be back with us tomorrow as we finish up our conversation on the book of Amos.